So if they join us, that would be lovely. But if not, we've got a phenomenal, illustrious panel, and we'll all just start. Let's all shift up one. They can split up and sit one either end, so that I don't, I'm not cutting you off completely. I think you're probably quite used to how these panels work now, because you've probably been in a lot of them. Some of you have probably had the misfortune of having me hosting a panel before, so you'll kind of know how it works. What I'm going to do is ask our panellists to introduce themselves and to give us a bit of the context in which they interface with young people who are care experienced, or in this case, if they haven't particularly worked with young people who are care experienced, a little bit about their community project. So it's themselves, what they do, and their connection to young people who are care experienced. For those of you who haven't stumbled across me before, my name is Zena, and I work for a charity that works with young people who've been permanently excluded from school, an English and a Welsh charity. But I have a history, first having started work with young people in 1985 when I worked in residential care. So I've had a connection, even though when I worked in the commercial sector, I was still a trustee on charities that work with young people. So I've worked with young people for, that's 40 years, isn't it? Oh, Jesus, I don't even feel like I'm 40 years old, let alone been doing this for 40 years. Good God. But before I started work, I was heavily involved in a community project. So I'm sure that's why I was picked to lead this. I'd gone back to live with my natural mum. I'd come out of North London, we'd moved down to Cornwall, and I'd gone back to live with my natural mum. Very unusually, my foster brother came with us. We'd sort of become a almost blended family between foster family and natural family. And we were living in Cornwall, and this was during the time of the miners' strikes. People don't think about Cornwall, tin mining. And we all realised as a group of kids at age 15 that there was no farming left, fishing was dying, the mines were closing, and there was no work for us to do. So as a group of kids, we got together and set up a community project. And we got the council involved, we got money from the Manpower Services Commission, and we got a building called Breadline, and we called the project Bread Street. So we got a building on Bread Street and called it Breadline, very clever for us young people. And actually we set up a project. There was a band practicing room, photography room, claimants union, would you believe it, back in the day. We actually had some rights if we weren't employed, and a community cafe. And it was a social enterprise, and hearing John Burt reminded me that we didn't know what that was, but it is the longest standing social enterprise in the UK because it's still there and it's still running. And that is the power of community. It was run by the community for the community, and today it is still run by the community for the community. And three of us who set that up were care experienced young people, so we can do something very positive. But that sets the scene, I hope, for a little bit of the power of community projects. And I am going to start my panel. Introduce yourself. I'm going to pretend I don't know who you are. We haven't done this 3 times already today. I'm going to start with run along. And just to be aware, we will stop hard at 3:45 to give you all a chance to have a cup of tea before you go back into the main hall for 4 o'clock.
So just say hello, good afternoon again. We could probably skip this by now. I think we're all friends now. So my name's Rob Gibbs. I'm a police officer. I'm a chief inspector in Enfield in North London, and I work in the boroughs of Haringey and Enfield and look after neighbourhood policing there. I run something called Clear Hold Build, which is a home office strategy in policing about a long-term approach to some of our most difficult parts of the country, for that matter. There's 61 of these projects nationally. I wear a hat for the Met, where I look after 8 projects in London. And this bit is relevant really to the hold part of Clear Hold Build, where we've done our policing bit up front, and how do we involve communities and third sector and set up projects that actually hold back the tide of the dent that we make in the crime in the first part.
Now, I know I'm always rushing, but give us an example. A community project example.
Okay, I think I hold about 15 projects at the moment. So one of those is about redeveloping a doctor's surgery of the local authority into a community space that can be used. Another one is about turning a former drugs house, crack house, into a touchdown space for policing and partners. Another one is to do with what we do with those that are leaving prisons and finding themselves in housing in the middle of our most difficult part of London, and how we make sure that they stay out of getting back into trouble and going back into prison. We have a big... Do you want some more? 3 of them.
Brilliant, thank you. I just think context is sometimes really useful.
Hi, Tash Dixon. I'm from the Home Office. I work alongside Rob in the kind of community space and how people come together as a collective. And another chief inspector who is not on the panel, he's decided to leave us here. Very similar about how we come together as a collective in a position where many people don't have additional resource or funding, and how we make a difference in doing that. It is driven by my lived experience, which is domestic abuse and sexual violence, and so I'm a great believer that lived experience can give you all the tools you need to change systems and processes when you give people the chance to come out of fight or flight mode. I think they are the biggest lessons, and we can give you all the information. And so that's kind of how I work and how I like to do things. We've got loads of projects that we can talk about as if we don't run out of time.
Good afternoon. My name's Jim Blakemore. I'm co-founder, co-CEO of a social enterprise called Bikeworks. I set Bikeworks up about nearly 20 years ago. We're London-based, and essentially we use the bike as a tool for good. The bike is an incredibly powerful tool. Yes, you can use it for just to go from A to B, but we've developed a number of services that really sort of drill into the community and enable everyone to have a cycling experience. So we've got about 10 inclusive cycling hubs, all in public realm, where we work with multiple profound disability, but through to just teaching people how to ride bikes. We go into schools, teach people how to ride bikes. We have 2 training centres where we work with those furthest away from the labour market, delivering city and guilds. We're also a level 2 coaching organisation, and we can train people to be cycle instructors. We do a raft of other things, but we also have a very cool team building arm, which is a revenue generator for the organisation, and that's sort of why I find myself here. So our team building program called Charity Bike Factory brings together corporates from 8 senior leaders through to full companies of 400 people, and we give people an incredible experience, an authentic experience of team building through a number of challenges, and the end result is that these corporates will build bikes, and then we donate these bikes back into the community. They could be early years. There was an early years bike on our stall down here, or it could be adult bikes, or it could be BMXs. So the reason I find myself here is myself and Emmanuel, who's my project manager somewhere, we bumped into Fatima at an event a year ago. And, we immediately, as everyone's seen and heard today, we just absorbed her passion and said, well, can we give you some bikes? And she said, of course. So we gave her 60 BMXs last summer, which was part of a collaboration between Bloomberg, who is our client, and the Paris Olympics. And what we gave those bikes out. We worked with a foster company, that care home, that she had hooked us up with. We then brought 20 young people to the Olympic Park, which is where we're based, and we provided a professionally coached BMX session for 16 or 17 people from 8 years to 18 years. And just seeing that, it just resonates why we do what we do. But seeing people with lived experience all on this incredibly scary BMX track being coached was an unbelievably powerful thing. So that's why I'm here. No overall connection with specifically care, but just by the nature of what we've done in the last 20 years, I know that we'll have engaged with a lot of people. So it's been also a pleasure to be here for the last day and a half.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Kelly Thurston. I'm a Chief Inspector at Essex Police, and I'm here. I met Fatima last year. We run a community project called Essex Community Goals, myself and my colleague over there. Some of you might have heard her talking about it yesterday. And basically we invite around 220 young children from Essex to a football event held at headquarters, and we have police officers in uniform that go and interact and speak to, play football with the young children that come along. And it's aimed at children that probably wouldn't, under any other circumstances, have anything to do with the police. 24 years of policing tells me that a lot of young children take on the perceptions and the beliefs of, older children, their parents, family, friends, and they don't form opinions of themselves, for themselves, or any interactions that we have as police officers are usually negative interactions. And I'm really passionate about trying to change that for policing and trying to have more of a positive impact on young children's lives. So Essex Community Goals allows us to do that. We've been running for about 5 years. And another project that I've run myself in Essex, again, sort of based around football and sports, because we all know that sports is a really good way to get young children involved and talking to people, is a project where I worked with local schools and our children's and young persons officers, and we identified children within the schools that were vulnerable because of their circumstances or because of the people that they were mixing with, who were on the brink of getting into trouble with the police, or they were on the brink of getting expelled from school. And we worked with them and with a football celebrity from the local football team who were sort of semi-professional footballers, and we used to run projects with them for a few weeks where we would invite them in, we'd play football with them, with police officers as well, with the local teams, and we would also hold like a little bit of a learning clinic around why they would be at risk of CSE or why they would be at risk of online issues. And we impacted quite a few children, probably I think around 100 children from local schools as well.
Amazing. Hi everyone, my name is Isabel Staza. I am a representative speaker here from the US, so forgive me for half of the US and allow me to share about the better half of the US and some of the work that we're doing. So to really provide context on the community project that I'm representing here today, I have to share a little bit about my story, my connection to the care system. So I grew up in care in the US. I spent over 7 years of my life in there. Prior to entering care, I experienced extreme poverty, grew up with about 5 siblings, went on to experience homelessness, living in a tent, living in churches, kind of couch surfing between strangers, wherever we could find a spot to live. Experienced a lot of sexual abuse and eventually was trafficked by my own mother, which led to me being placed in the foster system at 13. I was placed with 2 of my siblings, 2 of the 5 of us, or the 6 of us were placed in, 3 of the 6 of us were placed in care, and we were separated immediately. And it resulted in me experiencing more than 12 different placements, none of which were with my siblings ever, and I went about 7 years without any form of contact with them. Not a letter, no photos of them. I never knew that they were adopted by families until later on in life. And eventually, at the age of 17, I was physically assaulted by one of my foster parents, and it led me to be homeless. And while I was under the jurisdiction of the court system in the US, of my state, of Michigan, I continued to be homeless for the next several months upon my 17th birthday when that assault happened. And it led me actually to the best thing that ever happened to me, which was that I went to undergrad. I pursued college only as a means of escaping homelessness. I didn't go because I thought I deserved to go or because I was smart enough to go, but I went because I knew I would have a house. And eventually, I learned that it was the #1 public institution in the US. And so I was incredibly, just grateful for that opportunity. But that was at the height of COVID. 2 months into my undergraduate degree, they closed all the campuses in the US and they told everyone to go home. Mind you, I didn't have a home prior, so I didn't have a home then. And I ended up being homeless again at 17, while under the jurisdiction of our US system for the next 2 years. And no one did anything to provide me support, to provide me housing. And obviously that led me to be extremely frustrated, and I became really loud in that frustration. On campus, in my local school areas and communities, eventually onto the state and our government at a state level, and then onto the federal advocacy. I've worked for the Congress prior to this administration. I left before this, but I worked for them. I wrote legislation in the hopes of protecting relational permanency for children in care, because I knew that I lacked that entirely, and it left me really disadvantaged, and it made a lot of my life significantly harder. Eventually I left that because I love being able to work directly with the community and provide direct support, and that's led me here today. I'm here representing the organization Foster Greatness in the US, where we have built, literally with people who've experienced care in the US, they have gotten to design a digital community support system that has brought together, all about collaboration, organizations, corporations, departments, agencies, and children who've experienced care at any time in their life. They could be any age and live in any of the 50 US states or US territories and are part of our network. And so we provide life skills development training all for free. We've helped people file their taxes for free in the US if they've experienced the care system. We've just developed our most recent community project, which is the Storyteller Collective. It's just launched as of last Friday, where we are bringing young people who've experienced the care system in the US and teaching them how to use their voice to advocate for change on large platforms and combine that with leadership development and digital media advocacy. So we're really excited to be here and use our tools that we've developed and eventually, ideally, bring them to the UK with some of the partnerships that we've developed.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks,
Okay, so that's incredible. Okay, so my name is Joy Lum and I'm a foster carer with Wakefield Council, and we are in the very, very early stages of our own little mini community project. So I'll hand you over to Michelle to tell you about our choir. But then once she's done that, I'd like to tell you a little bit of how that choir, the formation of that choir, has impacted on the wider community.
Lovely.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Michelle Kennedy. I'm also a Wakefield foster carer. Just over a year ago, I reached out to my fellow foster carers to see if anybody wanted to get together to sing, and I was astonished at the response. I didn't think anybody would come. We turned up on the first day, and I just didn't think anybody would come. We are now an established group of 14 foster carers. This has turned into a vital source of support for all of us. You know, fostering has its challenges. It can be a difficult job to do at times, and we meet and we sing together. It makes us feel better. We talk about the things that are difficult to do with fostering, and we share experiences and support one another. We have started singing at fostering events. We have had our foster children come and join us. We all sing together. It's just a wonderful thing that's developed. And I reached out to Fatima not long after the choir had formed, actually, and she immediately invited us to come and attend this event and sing. And we couldn't really sing then, no. so we've had to put some hours in, and we've had to do some work in the last year, but we're so proud of what we've achieved. You know, we want to push our message out there into the community. We want to use our choir to promote the desperate need for foster carers. You know, it is an absolute tragedy that children are ending up in Airbnbs and in situations that they shouldn't be because there just aren't enough foster beds. So we really want to drive this out into our local community in the hope that we can get more foster carers.
So on the back of that little choir, when we first started setting it up, we needed somewhere to rehearse. And we thought, well, where's got nice acoustics? Oh, church. So contacted the local Mothers Union and told them our story, and they said, yes, use our church, it'll be great. And they also said, how can we help? So we went, oh. So our local Mothers Union branches provide care packs for all our care leavers. They provide toiletry packs, food packs, cleaning packs, and so every person who leaves care in Wakefield, they receive a pack and a little note from the Mothers Union. They've also run a community cafe from our town cathedral, which is free. It's donation if you want, or you can have free coffee, tea, and when care leavers are invited to come, and they can just sit and talk. And we've kind of nicknamed it grand mentoring, because the average age of a lady Mothers Union is probably 70s, 80s. So this cafe is run right by a whole load of little grandmas who come out. If you wander in, they'll come and sit with you and just check you're okay, and then leave you be if you want to be left by yourself. So it's had that kind of follow-on impact in that we've engaged another community group to help us with the fostering. And so we just want to carry that on, don't we? We just want to get some proper funding so we've got decent speakers and things, and actually just get out there and see who we can engage to do what in the fostering community. So thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. As always with foster carers ahead of the game, I was going to ask for an example of things that you've done with young people and care leavers to actually develop a community project, and you did it without being asked. Oh, I'm going to give you a chance to give us another one then. So yeah, but both of you, give us another one, and then we'll come back down this way where you talk about things that you've actually done with young people in care if you have, to actually build a community project that might have some legs and longevity. But the fact you've got another one is great. Take us away.
Yeah, we've got another one. Part of our choir, we have in Wakefield a supported lodgings carer who isn't normally they're employed by the council, but this young lady isn't, and she's got her own place and she does fantastic work with these young people. And we invited her to join our choir. And of course, when people come, you talk, don't you? And you exchange information, and so. The supported lodgings does Christmas dinners now for care leavers. How many came, Sally, last time? 43. So we had 43 Christmas dinners this last time through the supported lodging service for care leavers. So will that do?
Can I just very quickly add, it was on Christmas Eve. So it wasn't just that Sally's given up her time to do this. It was on Christmas Eve, on top of all the stresses. So the difference that she's made. I mean, Sally, give us a wave, because she deserves a massive round of applause. Thank you.
Tell me you're aiming to do Foster Fest.
Oh, we are hoping to secure some funding. It's in the very early stages at the moment. But if we do, our goal is to have Foster Fest. We want to find a site and we want to have a full-on music festival for entire foster families. Bring your gran, bring your birth children, bring your foster children, and we want to go massive, don't we, on this? Yeah, so.
And just before we move on, if there's anyone in the room who thinks they can help make that happen or knows somebody who can help make that happen, please come and talk to them or come and talk to me, because we absolutely cannot wait to be a part of Foster Fest.
So to answer this question, I'm going to tell you a little backstory behind Foster Greatness. So when Foster Greatness started, it started quite recently, but they had a group of people who came together and they thought they knew a solution to some of the biggest problems that, I mean, they're pretty much identical here in the UK. The long-term outcomes that our young people who leave care or go off the care cliff are experiencing. So the homelessness, being incarcerated, domestic violence, all these rates they saw, and they thought they had developed this incredible masterclass that could solve a lot of these issues. They could provide free life skills training to anyone who'd been in care. They could get it through all of our universities, so anyone who goes to them has access to it, and they can independently go about them and develop skills as they see fit. And it wasn't successful. In fact, when you look at the rates, a lot of them, there are 16 modules, tons of information. I mean, it was really well done when you look at it as an academic, but they only had about 30% of people made it through about half of the first module, and then it kind of fell off. And there were 16 of them. And that was young people saying, this isn't what we need, actually. This is not what I'm looking for. I mean, the last thing I was looking for when I was in undergrad was more education, more classes, more time reading on my own. It really wasn't. And so what they did was actually, they ran into me, and I kind of asked some questions of how are people who've left care, we say aged out of care, how are they informing your mission? How are they driving what you're doing? How are they involved in the decision making? And they kind of sat back and were like, oh, they're not. And so I came on the team, I joined the team, I was very fortunate, and what I saw was just a completely different response from any other organization than I'd ever seen before, which was, we are going to listen in depth to what you have to offer. And we brought on other people with lived experience to the team, we brought in other people, and we just completely redid the organization. We sat them down and let people like me, who'd experienced the system, write our mission statement, right at the very core. Tell us what we are doing, what you want us to do, what the solutions are. And they did it. The words, our mission statement is to co-create a dynamic digital platform directly with those impacted by the foster system in the US to set a new standard of empowerment and support. And we want to do that internationally. I mean, what we see in the UK is just identical to what we see in the US. And we need a standard of empowerment and support that has been set by people who've experienced the system themselves. And so we did that. We said, tell us how to do it. They wrote our mission statement, they wrote our vision statement, and then they told us what to do. And every project that we have designed, from the Storyteller Collective I was telling you about today, to we did a huge Thanksgiving dinner with young people all over the US. We've partnered with incredible organizations to bring that to life. We've done gingerbread celebrations in light of all of the holidays that we embody in the US. We've done incredibly larger programs, but they all have come from people who've said, this is what we want actually. And we've seen just our community grow by thousands of people since last year, when we started listening to young people tell us, this is the solution, this is how you get it done, this is how you bring us together. And we start all at that core of, we need to create belonging before we can create true generational change for our community of people who exit care or experience it at any point in their life.
So if I take Essex Community Goals, which is probably the biggest project that we do in Essex as a whole, where we invite people from around the county to one particular place. We work with charities, Active Essex, we've worked with Yellow Door charity within Essex, and they bring children that they work with to the tournament and play the seven-a-side tournament. Now, one of the things that we try and do is it's really hard to try and evaluate the worth of community engagement, especially from a policing perspective. So one of the things that we try and do is speak to the children whilst we're there and we're walking around, and we try and gather some information from them perhaps before they come around what their interactions with the police have been like previously, and then we get some information from them after the tournament and kind of see whether or not their attitudes towards police have changed, or whether they would feel that they would engage with us moving forward outside of the community goals environment. And what we see is more than 50% of the children that we've engaged with that day, now bearing in mind there's about 220 children there, more than 50% of them come back and say they didn't engage with us before, but having engaged with us and seen us and played football with us and spoken to us during that day, they would now positively engage with police officers moving forward. And that, to me, is exactly what Community Goals is about. We don't exclude grassroots football teams, but we offer the football placements to community teams before we offer to grassroots teams. Grassroots teams are generally made up of children that have got access to those facilities, and we want to make sure that we're engaging with those children that don't necessarily have access to things like grassroots football or any other kind of sports facilitated events. And we work really hard to make sure that moving forward, we don't just have them there for that day and then we kind of let them go back off into Essex and forget about them. So we try and work really hard to continue engagement with them. One of our officers in particular from Harwich in Essex decided that he was going to get some of the children from his area that were living in care homes, and he formed a team with those children from different care homes within Harwich. Now that was fraught with complications because some of those children were from what they called rival gangs. So we had to try and get them to work together and try and get them to play football for the same team, and also get them to want to come to a police event. But he made it happen, he made it work, and the team, they were fantastic, and they really engaged with police, and we did change some of their minds around how police worked, what our jobs involved, and the fact that we weren't always there to have a negative impact, that we could be there to have a positive impact on their lives. And just quickly, with the other project where we were working with the schools, on the very first session that we did, I ran 10 weeks of a session with the school children and with partners, with the council, CSP partners in particular. And after those 10 weeks, we evaluated what had happened and what had gone on, and we asked the children that had been involved. There was about 14 children in year 10 that had been involved. And we asked them what they thought of it, what they thought worked and what they thought didn't work. And out of that, we reduced the time to 6 weeks. We upped the hour from an hour and a half, upped from an hour and a half to 2 hours per session. And we changed some of the inputs that we were giving because some were more helpful than others. And the biggest thing for me personally out of that was that one child had a very poor opinion of the police and said himself that, you know, if he saw police coming, he'd always run away and wouldn't allow police to stop and talk to him. He'd make off. And having interacted with us for those 10 weeks, he changed his mind that if he'd got stopped by the police or he saw the police again, he would stop and speak to them. And he also opened up to a teacher at school and said that he was actually being used to hold drugs by another pupil in the school, and that he never would have spoken up about it had he have not had that interaction with us. So to me personally, that's a really huge deal. One person out of the 14, I know maybe doesn't sound very much to some people, but for me as a police officer, that one person out of 14 was huge. It was a huge deal.
So I sort of feel like Bikeworks as an organisation, we're at the sort of start of our journey of actually, engaging with, people who've lived experience within care. And, we're a very small organisation, but we pack quite a big punch in terms of what we deliver in terms of impact. But I think fundamentally for us, working with other groups, other community groups, other organisations is where we can really harness our skills, because, we deliver great stuff. And we deliver great stuff out in the community, and if we can work with different agencies, different charities, and they are able to refer people to us, then we can pick up and deliver what we're good at. And I think that's what I'm taking away from this last sort of couple of days, is that there is so much more we can do with our 20 years of experience in delivering vocational skills, delivering experiences, using something very simple, something that hasn't ultimately changed in 150 years, the humble bicycle. That's sort of where I'm going to walk out of these doors. So not too many stories, but I've got loads of ideas now.
I'll be really quick. I'm conscious of time, and I'm conscious. So really quickly, we were invited here because of how the two pilots that we have work, coming together as a collective and breaking down silo work. So that's Leicestershire, who are over there, and obviously Chief Inspector Heggs. And I think the biggest thing that we've taken away, and I hope everyone else has, is that we have already tweaked the way in which we are already working based on the connections we've made today. We have meetings that are already set up to ensure that we continue to listen and learn. And I think that's the biggest thing I can say, I'm basing it on the question, is that respectfully, and I've had it because I speak in domestic abuse spaces, we have to start to listen and not see our stories as trauma porn, because we listen to lots of people's journeys and battles. But what you take away from that is, don't leave it in this room, take it with you and let it inspire you to do something. And it can be something really small, it can be something amazing. I'd love to be a foster carer one day. I'm struggling as a solo parent to twins, but one day it will happen. But something, it could be really small, that you've made a connection with someone here and you make a difference by making a meeting or setting that up. I hope that's what we've taken away, and we're going to continue to live and learn and change how we're working.
So I think I said when I started that I'm holding 15 projects at the moment. I think from being here for the last couple of days, I think that's grown to about 19 now. I think there's 4 more people and projects that we're due to kick off in the meantime. I spoke about this clear whole bill thing and what we've been doing so far, and what in the policing bit, what we do. I think my part in that is really small. It's the front end of that in trying to set up to make the dent in the crime and antisocial behaviour to make some of these projects get a chance of being successful. And where we are now and where we go next is almost like the more important bit to me. But just to kind of qualify some of that, this is the second version of this, the project that I've run. I started off in Barnet in North London in a place called Graham Park, which was subject to some really significant violence, 15 shootings in 5 months. We went through a process of really enhancing and coordinating the policing in and around that, and over a period of about 8 months made over 300 arrests, made a really significant dent in the crime, and started to set up the what next. Where I am now, in kind of Tottenham and Edmonton, that's where I work now. We've been running the police element of that for about 10 months. We're almost 600 arrests. They had last year 133 stabbings. These are frightening numbers. This year, 61% reduction on that. We're about 50. Nobody's been killed. I look back at, where's Graham Park now and the activity we set up around there. This is the whole bit. This is the community projects. This is involved in the community, creating a cafe, regenerating the estate. How do we brand the name, draw people in? May the 23rd, if we get there, that'll be 2 years, no more shootings. Where we are now, in Tottenham and Edmonton, we're just shifting into this hold phase. I've learned a lot from what I did back then. I'm hugely grateful for people like Tash. We've invited loads of other people and projects that have come into this room. They're not here right now, but in terms of what we've set up next, I mentioned 15. A lot of that is around the care system. A lot of that is around young people. There's a couple of projects that sit out there. Our colleagues here are CEOs from charities from somewhere called NYCC, have over 2,000 children on the books, and what they do to divert it. And my role in that is not really with my police hat on. Actually, it's to coordinate and set some of this up to make them successful in what they do. And we set up what we call the governance structure, the strategic bit over the top. What it really means is I've got some really important people with a lot of influence in the council. We have a meeting and we sit down every 4 weeks and we try and make sure we drive some of this forward. And I want this to outlive me. People live there. People are influenced by what happened. They're invested in it. I'm invested in it because 20 years ago in this area, I was a sergeant and I see the problems that they have now. Now I'm a chief inspector. I've got a bit of more opportunity to try and influence it. But actually, right now, we're setting this up with the what next. We're joining the dots. We're pulling the people together. And actually, we've brought in both politicians. It can be a double-edged sword, but there's some really influential people. There's no politicians in the room, is there? But some really influential people that can drive this in the long term, because we need to change the short-term nature of it, set it up for something that's going to exist and have legacy. And that's what we're doing right now.
Wow, thank you. And I think just on your story, what was so encouraging there was hearing that you'd gone from the 300 or whatever it was shootings to none and sustained it over a 2-year period, because what we've heard a lot about is quick intervention, let's give it a go, and then we sod off, and everything goes back to where it was. So actually, the police thinking about how you sustain something, and that, I think you call it hold, is really important. What powerful things we've heard. We've got 5 minutes left, so what I'd like to do is to take literally 2 of those 5 minutes to talk to the people on your table and to just come up with, if I was going to ask you, which I promise I am not, what is your 15 to 30 second takeaway from this whole event? Not just this conversation, but this whole event. Just chat to the people on your table. If you're on your own, please go and join somebody and just say what it is I'm taking away. 15 seconds. It's a sound bite. What's the sound bite you're taking away? And you've got 2 minutes. Find somebody to play with. It's so obvious, the energy, the passion, the commitment in this room. Some of you are struggling not to keep sharing. I hope you take that opportunity, because we will be shortly going into a coffee break to carry on those conversations, because it is the magic that happens between you that makes the lasting change. But I'm going to go to my panel. We're going to start with you because you've got the mic, who have each got 10 seconds to give us their closing thoughts. And it can be whatever closing thoughts you want, because after this we go into a full panel and that's the end of the event. So your closing thoughts.
So Senator to me takes 6 words. I think I've got 7, but we're going to go, we need to think bigger, we need to think longer, and we need to join the dots.
Thank you. We'll clap them at the end, otherwise we'll be clapping.
My vision remains to build a collective village that can support anyone.
Connect with more people here. You know, as people have said, it's not rocket science, so people will help people.
Continue to collaborate. I think everybody's saying the same thing.
We need to make foster alumni care leavers the decision makers internationally.
Keep on pushing for me, just keep pushing.
And I feel incredibly empowered that we are going to make positive change by events like this.
Fantastic, thank you. Give it up for our panel. Give yourselves a clap as well, because this might be the last clap you give yourselves. Thank you all for coming. And let's keep doing what we're doing. And as I always say, let's make it fun, because the more smiles there are, they are infectious. And we want our young people smiling. So let's give it up for young people. Thank you very much.